All right, all right, all right. This is the live Brett Johnson show. Take two. Take two because hey, just about 5 minutes ago, Eric Cowan he messaged me and he said he messaged here because so anyone's got any questions, any comments, anything like that, feel free to make them. I look at the comments as we're going on. I'm hoping that this shows comments from YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I don't know. I'm going to have to find out. And you'll notice I'm kind of looking back and forth at my computer screen because I'm not a rich guy. But the way I've got the camera set up, I don't want to block the camera from the monitor. So I look over at the monitor every now and then. Yeah, so this is take two. Eric was saying that the video was being frozen. The audio wasn't very good. It was kind of choppy. So we're trying that again. If you guys are having any problems like that, let me know. I made sure the wire was that were hardwired into the internet, everything else like that. I had made the promo for Monster Energy Drink. I told you about my cousin, Butch Cheney. I think it was Butch. It may have been Ace. So please forgive me if I've got the wrong name. Anyway, what I was saying is OxyContin. I don't know what got me on OxyContin to begin with, but OxyContin. I come from Hazard, Kentucky. And shout out to any Hazardites or Hazardarians or Luddites in the Hazard area that might happen to watch the show. You guys, I love you all. Heart of coal country, and you guys are great. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, and I've been here for a few years. And Birmingham's kind of interesting. The weather never changes in Birmingham. It's always hot, humid, and racist. It's like they took a snapshot of the 1950s and just kind of left it there to ferment, and it did. They burn churches. They blow churches up. I know they say that's a long time ago, but I'm not sure how far removed we are from that. Today, Birmingham, when I moved here, Birmingham in the, I guess, late 60s, early 70s, was called Little South Africa. And today, the city of Birmingham is separated north and south by a railroad track. And north of the railroad track, the demographics, it is 99% Black African-American. South of the railroad track, it is 98% white. That's right, white, Caucasian, white, and pure as the driven snow. So, yeah, anyone who thinks that Kelly Pope, she's a professor over at DePaul, a friend of mine. She brought me in. I'm friends with her, and a few years ago, she had seen an interview, I guess on CNN. She had seen this interview, and she reached out to me to ask if I would come and talk to her class, and I did. I drove from Birmingham all the way up to Chicago because back then I was not and hell, it's not like I have money now, but back then I definitely didn't have any money, and I couldn't afford all the plane tickets or anything else, and I drove. I drove from Birmingham all the way up to Chicago, long ass drive, and I'm this guy that likes to drive a lot, but got there, talked to her class. We developed a friendship. And later on, I was on many podcasts. I spoke to several different classes of hers and everything else. And she, and I'm in a book of hers that she wrote. But she asked me during an interview, she was like, do you think that you have white privilege? And I looked at her. Now, and just full disclosure, Kelly is African-American. And I looked at her, I was like, So I just said, yeah. I said, I'll tell you the truth. Yeah, why the hell not? Yeah, I am. I do benefit from white privilege. Absolutely, I do. You know, if it were, I got out of prison. I'm well spoken. I'm intelligent. I'm personable. I'm able to make friends very well. I adapt extremely well to my environment. Any African-American who had the same qualities and characteristics, he would probably have not been able to have benefited as much as I have. He may not have even had the door open to him. I kind of doubt. I think he would have. You know, I see the cybersecurity community, the fraud prevention community. They are very open-armed. But I do believe that he would have, that an African-American person would have had much more difficult time achieving what I have achieved on the good guy side than I have. So yeah, I believe it's a thing. I absolutely do. Well, I was talking about my cousin Butch Cheney and our Butcher Ace. Again, I forget which one it was. There's two of them. Of course, there are. Both doctors, and one of the Cheneys, he had got arrested for OxyContin or opiate trafficking. At one point, Hazard, Kentucky, my hometown, was the capital of OxyContin use. More of it was sold there, used there, snorted there than any place else in the United States. Any place else. And Dr. Cheney, he was running, he had a clinic where he would prescribe opiates, and they had video of that. The feds had video of that, of, customers. Let's not call them patients. Let's call them customers. Customers literally wrapped around his building, waiting in line. They'd go in there and pay him, I guess, $90 or some crap like that. He'd write them a script for some opiate. Then they'd walk over to his pharmacy that he owned as well, and they would fill the script. Well, needless to say, that kind of stuff doesn't last very long, but it does last very long because, let's be honest, it takes a minute for the feds to indict someone. But they did indict him. So they indict him, and this gives you an insight into my family. It's not just me that, people who know my history, they were like, man, that guy did some stuff. It's not just me. So Dr. Cheney gets out, and what does he do? He goes and rents a billboard. Yeah, one of these big-ass billboards, like, you drive by on the interstate and see, and he rents a billboard, and he starts talking about how the feds have wrongfully and are wrongfully prosecuted him. Needless to say, he gets time out of that. Needless to say, they were not happy. Come to find out, they don't only not like you breaking the law, they don't like you poking at them either. So that's what happened. I think he's out now. Yeah, I think he's out now. Anyway, my name is Brett Johnson. This is Brett Johnson Show. The tentative title is Trust, Prison, Tariffs, blah, 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 blah. Let me, I wanted to pull up some comments, make sure I've got everything in order here. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. Let's see. Join Brett Johnson Live. Nobody's watching it, or at least nobody is commenting. If someone could comment, if there's anyone out there, anyone at all, is there anybody out there? If there's anybody out there who can comment, I would appreciate that. I'm, I don't know if I'm talking to the nether, if the nether is receiving me loud, clear, and judder-free, or what have you. But this is Brett Johnson. This is Brett Johnson. So I served 7.5 years in federal prison. And the reason I'm talking about that today, I want to be sharing some of those prison stories and everything that happened. I think it's important to do that. So the reason that I'm talking about prison experience is I want to share those types of things. So 7.5 years, I started out my time. So for those who don't know, when you're arrested, depending on the crime, you're not going, and we're talking federal, you're not going to get your ass out of jail. You're going to sit there through the duration. Okay. It's typical a lot of the time that you're indicted first or arrested first on state charges. And then the feds will swoop in and will charge you as well. At that point in time, usually the state will drop their charges and the feds will take over, and you go through the federal system. Sometimes it doesn't work like that. Sometimes people are so angry at you, so angry, that the feds and the states keep the charges in line. And the way that works is, say the state gives you 10 years, and then the feds charge you and they give you, another 10 years. You'll go and do your time, and say they run consecutive, because they can run concurrently at the same time. But say they run consecutive, so you get 10 and 10. You'll do your time first in the state, and as soon as you're done with serving your time in the state, the U.S. Marshals will come and get you, and you'll go through your time in the federal penitentiary. So that's the way that works. When you're arrested, it is not as if you immediately go to prison. You go to a county jail. And for those who have been locked up, County jail time is the absolute worst time that you could possibly ever, and I mean ever, 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 ever serve. Let's see, we got some people. I see, I'm here. Good morning, Brett. Good morning. Good morning, Matt. Good morning, Alex. I am tickled to death. I got to tell you, I'm tickled to death that someone is listening. So, yeah, you go through county jail. County jail time is the absolute worst time that anyone can serve. The problem is that you're mixed in typically with different classes of inmates. So in your pod or in the jail, the part that you're in, unless it's like a real federal holding system, you're mixed in with people who are in there for DUIs, people who are in there doing weekend time, people who have committed very, very small crimes. And then at the same time, you've got somebody in there that may have killed somebody that may have, maybe coming down and he's been serving 23 years, or he just got sentenced to 30 years and things like that. And what makes that so stressful is a lot of the times those DUI guys or those people who haven't paid child support or whoever they are, they'll come in there and they'll start crying and they'll start whining and they'll start just complaining that I cannot stand my life. I've lost everything. I wham, 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 wham. Meanwhile, you've got a guy over in the next bunk that's been sentenced to 30 years, or he's looking at 30 years. So here he is. He's going to pull this time, and he's listening to this thing whine about having to do maybe 30 days or maybe just having to come in on the weekend. What do you think the outcome of that is? Well, I'll tell you what the outcome of that is. The outcome of that is that guy that's doing that 30 or about to do that 30, he gets up and he beats the ever-loving tar. See, I'm trying to avoid the colorful language. He beats the crap right out of that guy that's whining. That's one of the issues. The other issue is in the county jail, there's very little respect. So really what the county jail system does is it educates one on how to properly spend their time in prison so that you don't go in there and you're because you don't know what to do. So it educates you on this. So the people who come in are not educated on this. It's like a lot of uh, a lot of the demographic. That's a nice way to put it. A lot of the demographic in prison, they like to, not in prison, but in the county jail, they like to believe that they're rappers. So you get people that are screaming, that are rapping at the top of their lungs, that you've got these metal bunks, and you've got people that are banging out beats on the bunks as other people are trying to sleep. You get all kinds of stuff like that. You get it's crazy, and you get people that are coming in. They've got DTs, so they're withdrawing, they're crawling underneath the bunk as they see snakes coming out of the walls or bats flying at them, something like that, or bugs coming out of their skin. You see that? You see the meth guys coming in. Meth guys. The first time I ever saw meth, the first time in my life was when I was in the county jail. So yeah. Morning, Brett. I've been following you since you popped up on Darknet Diaries to Jack, and would love to say your talks of accountability have been a personal. So hey, Z96, I really appreciate it. Let's see, Alex. At some point, could you offer an opinion on the trend toward video visitation? It seems inhumane conclusion to our spiraling technocracy, technocracy to someone like me at first glance, but the argument the companies providing this have always made is that it actually increases the amount of available visitation by removing contraband concerns and by removing the logistical constraints around moving inmates out of their cell blocks due to rival gangs and other complexities. Alex, that is an outstanding, and I mean an outstanding question. So there's I believe the name of the book is called The Hot House, and it's it's got the Cuban riots in there in Atlanta Penitentiary, but it's about this. A lot of the arc is about this gentleman. I forgot his name, but he was a white supremacist serving time, and man, this guy was absolutely talk about violent. This guy was something else. ADX, I forgot what state, but the ADX system where, Ted Kaczynski is and everything else. That's where this guy is. And when you talk about, you've heard the term putting someone under the jail. That's exactly, literally what they did with this guy. He would, he'd get out on visitation, or he'd be in lock up in his cell in solitary, back and I'll tell you how it handled that ultimately. But, I was in solitary for 8 months, and you're allowed to shower, like, twice a week, Wednesdays and Wednesdays and Sundays, I think is what it was. And what happens is that the prison that I was in, solitary, you would, shower time, guard would come up, you put your hands behind your back, they'd put handcuffs on you, they'd march you to the shower, put you in the shower, and there's, of course, a barred door on the shower. They close that barred door, you turn around, back up to the gate, and they undo the handcuffs. You'd have like 10, 15 minutes to shower, all right? And that's twice a week. This guy, sometimes, depending on prison, they would actually put handcuffs in front, all right? This guy, I guess they put handcuffs in front of him, and on his way to take a shower, he kills another inmate because the inmate, I guess, is laying with his head toward the bars. Big mistake if you're in prison, and this guy comes along, he's got like a nice rope that he pulls out, and he pulls and he kills the guy before the guard can stop him. And he killed several people in prison. So ultimately, they ended up under the prison at the ADX compound. Um, Today, he never gets out of the cell. And I mean, he never gets out of the cell. Every piece of mail is scanned, and it shows up on a TV monitor in his cell. The shower system itself handled individuals like gang members and things like that. The shower system itself is portable. They actually wheel the shower up to the jail cell. The cell door opens up. The inmate steps into the shower itself, unless that is actually. I think that this guy is. I think his shower is actually in the cell itself. So video visitation. Um, I've served time. Like I said, I've served 7.5 years. Visitation in the federal system. I'll talk about federal and state, county. So visitation in the federal system, you can, you people, your people can come in and spend about, I think up to 6 hours. They can spend a long ass time, and you get to touch and not too close. You can hug at the beginning, you can hug at the end, but you ain't going to sit there and have sex. And I've seen people try it, but you're not going to sit there and have sex in the visitation room with 100 other people in there and think that you're going to get away with it. You're going to go to a hole after that. You're not going to have visitation for a long time after that. Blah 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 blah. I've seen people that have smuggled contraband in, or tried to smuggle contraband in on the visitation. I've seen people. So people in the federal system, as you come in to visit your loved one, the person who has messed up, as you come in to visit your loved one, they do this like this ion scan, and it will detect those types of drugs, unless you've suitcased them. So what is suitcasing? That's one of them. That's one of the colorful terms. Suitcase is when you take whatever that contraband is. You take that contraband and you stick it up an orifice, and that could be, if you're a male visiting an inmate, that's your anus, and if you're a female, well, it's you've got 2 orifices that you put the contraband in a balloon. If it's true, contraband in a balloon, tie it up in the bathroom, and you get it out of there. And what you would see inmates do, or their family members do, those that were smuggling in that contraband, they would buy, like, you got snacks being sold there. They would buy a bag of, say, a small snack bag of like Ruffles potato chips, and they would act like they were eating them. They would eat the bag. Then they would tell the guard they would have to go to the bathroom. They would take the bag of potato chips into the bathroom. While they were there, they would get out reach up in there, get the drugs out, put in the bag of potato chips, and then come back out. And then the inmate would act like he was eating the potato chips, but he'd be taking the balloons and swallowing them. Now, why would he swallow them? Well, he would swallow them because he'd go back to his cell, and then he would take a poo, and he would dig through the poo, he would rinse off the balloons, open them up, and there's his drugs. So, the contraband thing is absolutely real. Video visitation, I'm not opposed to it. It really depends, and the problem with in-person visitation is that, and I've seen it time and time again. You've got somebody, and I've got hell, today I know people that are in the cartels. I do. I had, when I got out of prison about a year and a half later, and this gives you an idea. I mean, everyone knew. Everyone knew in the prison system who the hell I was. They knew I had tried to rat out my buddies. They knew everything else, but evidently I was solid enough when I served time that I got out, and about a year and a half, 2 years later, I get a letter in the mail, and this letter is from a cartel guy, Sinaloa, that had, he was serving time. I knew him pretty well in prison, and, he owned a bunch of, car washes. There's your Breaking Bad, thing for the day. He ran a bunch of car washes in, San Diego and was laundering money for the Seminoles through that. And this guy sends me a letter. I'm "Hey, Brett, just thinking of you, man. If there's anything that you ever need, just let me know." I'm sitting there going, "Holy shit." So, yeah, I know, eh, it's weird about prison. It is. So, and my point on that, just to stick on visitation, is that I've seen gang members, not just, cartels, you know, Crips. I've seen gang members that their family members will come in, or someone will come in to visit, and they will start talking to that family member, not in a loving way, but, "Hey, this is what I want done. This is what I want done. Make sure you tell them to do this," and they're giving them orders on how to conduct business. That's one of the dangers with cell phones inside of prisons too. Yes, cell phones, a lot of people use it so they can contact their loved ones. A lot of people use it so they can, watch porn. A lot of people use it so they can threaten their spouses, but a lot of people use cell phones because they know they're not monitored, and they can conduct criminal activities using those cell phones, and that's one of the reasons that, that $40 prepaid cell phone down at Walmart is $1,000 behind. It's a very dangerous item to have because it's monitored. You don't know what's going on. You're dealing with a bunch of people that they have shown a proclivity to commit crime. That's why we were in prison. So video visitation really takes care of a lot of that. If you cannot trust that, if that inmate has shown a, a likelihood to continue to commit crime, at least through video visitation, he's able to see loved ones and go that route. The other alternative would be no visitations, and I've actually seen that too. So, it's I'm all for visitation. I will tell you this, for those who do not know, visits to an inmate, a visit is the best thing in the world, and it's the absolute worst thing in the world, because in the prison system, you get used to your routine. You get used to serving that time. You forget and are able to place that outside world outside of what you're doing. Every single time you get a visit, it disrupts that. You're reminded of that outside world. You're reminded of what's there that you've given up, that you've lost, and it hurts like it does. So it's the best thing in the world that your family's there, your friends are there, and you're able to talk to them. You're happier than hell that they're there. And then when they leave, it's like you gotta get right back into the grind of prison and understand what you've lost. So it's the best thing and it's the worst thing in the world. Um, Video visitations. I don't know of any other way you could do it. I don't. For a lot of those inmates that have shown, I don't know how you could do it. Now that being said, Here's the problem. The problem is that when and it happens with laws, it happened with RICO, it happened with the Patriot Act, it's happening right now with ICE. You law enforcement is given a tool or a permission to do something, and they first say, "Well, we're only gonna use it toward this one specific group." Well, no, that's not the way that works out. What happens is that tool technology, policy, what have you, is there, and then law enforcement tries to use it toward every single thing that they possibly can, and that's the issue, I think, with video stations is that I think a lot of them use it as a tool so that they don't have to monitor in-person visitations or even through class like that, and that's a big issue because if that inmate is not like that, if they're just trying to serve their time, get out, and then do the right damn thing, they should probably be allowed some distance. So I hope that that answers that question for you, Alex. My name is Brett Johnson, the Brett Johnson Show Live, number 3. So, Blake Peters. So, does anyone know out there who Blake Peters is? Blake Peters is I guess, the head brainchild behind Tether. So Tether is a stable coin. Tether is a stable coin that really has given Bitcoin and much of the crypto vertical its value. Now, what initially gave it its value and got its foothold and continues its foothold was a guy named Ross Ulbricht, who Donald Trump pardoned not long ago. Ross Ulbricht ran Silk Road. Silk Road was the first really viable dark web marketplace. I ran Shadow Creek. We were not dark web. We were on the surface web. We were a precursor to that dark web, and everything that followed from it. We laid the ground. We laid that foundation. That's what we did. So Ross, of course, gets caught as everyone, if they're really looking chances of them getting you, yeah, if they've got that erection, they're going to. There's a good chance they're going to get you. So they got Ross. They gave him 2 life sentences plus 40 years. The reason they gave him 2 life sentences plus 40 years is this thing called relevant conduct. So he ran the marketplaces. He was responsible for several $1,000,000 worth of drug trafficking. And the relevant conduct comes in that while he was running Silk Road, he tried to hire a hitman to murder a few people, like 4 people total. Turns out he didn't contact the hitman. He thought he did. He thought he did. So if you read the news about all these people, these husbands, or there was a preacher at one time tried to hire a hitman to kill his wife. I don't know if he was cheating on her or he wanted some insurance money or he just didn't like her talking all the time. And Jesus wouldn't let him divorce her. So he decided that he'd just do the next best thing, get rid of her. So he tries to hire a hitman, and he didn't hire a hitman. He reached out to who he thought was a hitman, and it was law enforcement. That law enforcement officer, I guess, he's sitting in the car going, "Now, what do you want me to do? You want me to do what to your wife? And then you want me to do this, and then, well, I can add this in there too." Gets it all on tape. The preacher pays the money, and then all of a sudden, how it comes to handcuffs. Well, guess what? Yeah, that's what Ross did. Ross thought he was talking to a hitman. He was not. He was talking to a law enforcement officer, FBI or Secret Service, one of the two. He is talking to that guy. That guy contacts the proposed victims. That guy contacts the proposed victims, stages, I guess he puts some ketchup on the guy, the proposed victim, puts some ketchup on the victim, takes some snapshots, sends over to Ross. Yeah, good. And of course, Ross pays the money. Ross was tried for that, though. This is what's called relevant conduct. Ross wasn't tried for those crimes. Those bodies were on his case. So what happens is as you go in for sentencing, the probation office and the prosecutor's office, they do this in-depth background. They write this stuff up, and those bodies mentioned, not mentioned, but detailed in or those would-be bodies were detailed in Ross Ulbricht's PSR, pre-sentence report. Because of that, the judge is allowed to consider that in sentencing, and Ross gets 2 life sentences, years, and Trump guy, not because Ross was innocent, not because Ross was a good guy, but because Ross got Trump a lot of votes during the election. I'm not trying to be political. Trump simply said that, okay? Uh, Ross, of course, ran Silk Road, gives Bitcoin its first use case because Silk Road only accepted Bitcoin as a payment form. Up until that point, Bitcoin was not being adopted. People were somebody's gonna sit there and say, "Oh, yes, people were using Bitcoin." Yes, so people were using Bitcoin, yes, but it hadn't been accepted among a lot of the populace. So get 10,000 of the things for 2 pieces. You had that, absolutely, you had that, but it wasn't until Ross started to accept Bitcoin as a payment form for all those drugs that people started to really use Bitcoin. And what happens from that is because that criminal element's in there using that currency, although Bitcoin, let's be honest, fluctuates so much in value, it's not really a currency, it's a store of value. So because they're using that transfer value back and forth to each other, those criminals are a foundation of the entire crypto sphere today. Tether Tether is a stable coin that, my God, the company's never been audited. Never, ever. They claim they've got all these US dollar reserves. They claimed at one point, "Oh, we've got 1 to 1. We've got a real US dollar to every Tether dollar we put out." They were never proved it. They were never able to prove it. They never agreed to an audit, anything else like that. To this day, they've never done that. And Tether today props up a lot of the crypto industry, a lot of those tokens that are out there. A lot of criminals love Tether. They love it. Blake Peters. Blake Peters is one of the guys that, is responsible for Tether. I guess he's got our president's ear. He not only had our president's ear, he had a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Epstein's ear as well. I guess he was very close friends with the guy. He actually dated Jeffrey Epstein's personal assistant. So this is this guy across. I'm looking at some messages here. Caesar, I'll answer your question here that you got in just a second. Um, just give you a minute. Oh, excuse me. So Blake Peters comes in and does it. Now Blake Peters, I forgot the guy's name that he was arrested with in France. Guy was arrested on CSAM, so uh, child sexual abuse material, and the FBI agents at that time said it was the largest trove of child pornography that the Bureau had ever seen. All right. Blake was not charged. He was not. So I'm not going to sit there and say, I'm not going to sit here and say that Blake Peters is a predator and he likes them young. I'm not going to sit there and say that. But I am going to say that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, that chances are it's Blake Peters. I will say that. Let's see what we got. Like, having talked with some inmate communications companies, I've heard that a lot of inmates, both county and long-term state, have the problem that they don't actually have a lot of people who want to talk to them, at least on the phone or via video. Not all of them are lucky enough to have family or supportive family or particularly communicative family or friends. That's why they push text messaging on their platforms so strongly, where and when possible. It's been very popular. So it's not only that. In the county system, and a lot of states have been sued for this. A lot of states, if I serve time, have even fixed the issue. A lot of states have not. But a 15, because when you call out to your family from the county, you have to call collect, or you have to have money on your books in some county jails. Those collect calls for 10 minutes will run 15, 20, $25. So it's a lot of the time it's not that the inmate, and same thing for videos. I'm not sure what videos are running. video visitation is running cost-wise, if you want to come here or what have you. A lot of the times, it really the inmate doesn't have the money or the person they're trying to call doesn't have the money to call and things like that. So, that the cost has a lot to do with it, really does. I served, like I said, I served 7.5 years. I wanted to tell you about today about, David Hupper, and this gives you an idea, and I let's see what time we've got, guys. I'm gonna close this out here in just a few minutes, but, there's a couple more things I want to talk about. I served time with a guy named Dave Hupper. Dave Hupper was an heir to the DeWalt Tool Company. His granddad, DeWalt, had DeWalt sold out, and DeWalt went on to become extremely profitable after that. But Dave was an heir to that. Dave's father managed the teacher retirement system for the state of Pennsylvania. Very good family and everything. Dave, I met him in Big Spring, Texas. Dave was a screw up. He was. His dad, mom, his dad would his mom knew that he was kind of messing up. But Dave was serving time when I met him for giving terrorist support to Hamas. Yeah, Dave had been sending money to Hamas, and they indicted him not only on that, they also indicted him on trying for passport fraud. Dave had applied for a passport in someone else's name. I knew how to do it properly and comply with it in the way that you did it back then, and the State Department may have changed that. The way that you did passport fraud, if you were looking to get a passport, what you would do is you would apply. So only when I was committing crime, only 12% of the US population had a passport. Turns out we Americans, we don't like to travel. We're convinced that our country is the best country in the world and no one else is even near it. That's why we Americans only speak American. We don't believe in other languages. We don't. Someone comes here, they need to speak our language. We go someplace else if we are brave enough to go someplace. We are that 12% get a passport. We think that they should speak American too. It's not English, it's American. So the way you used to do that, because about 88% of the population that didn't have a passport, is you would go down and try to apply for a new passport. And then we're talking about you'd find a victim that didn't have a passport, usually most people. You wouldn't apply for a new passport because you'd have to go through the post office and everything else. You wouldn't do that. What you do is you would apply for passport renewal. Ah, you don't have to go to the post office for that. You'd apply for a passport renewal. You'd send in all the information, and instead of them flagging it as, an improper application, because that individual never had a passport, they would just kick it over to a new passport application, and you get the passport in that individual's name. You could travel on it. Dave didn't know that. So Dave, I guess he goes, applies for a brand new passport in somebody else's name, sends the application in, State Department recognizes that identity theft and fraud. They notify the feds. Dave, of course, didn't know anything about drop addresses or anything like that. So they go down to where Dave was living, and they ask some questions. "Have you seen this guy?" And they're like, "Yep, he's in that apartment right there." They go and wait for him to come home. He does. They lock him up, and they gave him, I think, the terrorist support of the false passport application, passport fraud. I think they get him like 5.5 years is what Dave gets out. And Dave, what you see in prison is you see a lot of people that if they're in prison, they are outstanding. They truly are. They do everything right. They're not raising hell. They're very productive. They try to help their fellow inmates. They do all this, and then they get out, and their life goes all to hell. They go back to doing what they were doing. They screw up, and they find their asses back in prison or addicted or whatever. Dave liked methamphetamine a lot. So when I met Dave, I'd never known him until I went to prison. knew him, and the man absolutely did. Um, I just a real friend, worked out together, we, ate together, we joked around together, and we had that almost brotherly bond. Now there's gonna be somebody says, "Yeah, probably 4 feet in the shower too." No, not 4 feet in the shower, right? No, it wasn't like that. It was friendship. Friendship. You know, just because you locked in the box with somebody doesn't mean you gotta go do 4 feet in the shower, right? But we were friends. I got out. Actually, Dave got out a year before I get out after that. I'm busy trying to turn my life around. It took a minute. I was busy trying to turn my life around. Dave reaches out to me a few years later, and he had a job as a machinist. His dad had bought him a brand new Corvette. Everything else, Dave had it made. Next thing I know, his dad dies, and Dave Dave loved motorcycles. Dave buys a BMW GS, and I guess he puts like 47,000 miles on this thing in 9 months. And I'm sitting there going, "Dude, where are you going?" He tells me, "Well, I've got a job with BMW, just driving across the country." I thought, "Man, that's a dream job." He's like, "Oh, man, it's great." What you find out is that a lot of people, when they're doing bullshit, they will make up some bullshit lie to cover the bullshit that they're doing. And that's exactly what Dave was doing. So Dave, he messages me, he calls me, he's like, "Hey man, I'm coming through Birmingham. Would you have breakfast?" I was like, "Dude, I'd love to have breakfast." So we go down to the Waffle House, a southern tradition, and I hate waffles. So we go down to the Waffle House. We're sitting there, and Dave's like, just banging around. He's like that squirrel in that movie that I what did I say? He's like, and I'm like, man, hell, it's 6:30 in the morning. You are lively today. So he's telling me all this stuff. And he looked at me and was like, "Can you tell that I'm on something?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't know what people meant or acted like." Yeah, so I looked at him. I was like, "Yeah, man, I can tell." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So it turns out that he didn't have a job for BMW. What he did is he was running methamphetamine back and forth across the Mexican border, and he was delivering it to a couple of NFL guys and everything else like that. So that was Dave. Um, Dave's life fell apart. Dave knew that I was working with the FBI. So one day he calls me up and he's like, "Brett, I really need your help." And I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Man, I'm afraid that I'm going to get a lot of prison time." He tells me everybody's running these drugs to and everything like that. He's like, I'm afraid I'm going to get a lot of prison time. Can you connect me with an FBI agent so I can come in and talk to him? I was like, "I'll do that." So I called. I had some friends in the Oklahoma City field office. Called and they got up with Dave and told him to come on in. And they told Dave that they was telling him on the phone, "This, I'm doing this. I'm running meth. Blah 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 blah." And the agent, Dave calls him back. He said, "Yeah, I'm meeting the agent in 3 days." And the agent asked if I had anything on me. And I told him, "Yeah, I had a big old block of meth." And the agent tells me, "Leave that in your bike." And then I will. So Dave goes in, talks to the agent. Dave never contacted. Well, they didn't arrest him at the point in time. And what Dave wanted to do is Dave wanted to tell on enough people that he wouldn't serve any prison time. So Dave goes and meets the agent. I don't know how that meeting went. I don't know what happened, what was said, anything else like that. None of my damn business. But Dave ends up his release date today is 2040. That's his release date. And I'm positive that the man is doing quite well in prison because a lot of times behind that fence and that structured life, you you get used to that. And I tell you guys, I some of the happiest moments in my life, as crazy as that is, some of the happiest moments in my life, prison memories. You joking around, sitting there in Big Spring, Texas, and watching the sunset. I swear to God, the sunsets I have ever seen in my life because you had the sand and everything in the air. The sun as it was kind of spectrum type stuff, and it was just gorgeous sunsets. Some of the people that I met were outstanding human beings, but it took me a minute to understand that, yeah, while they may be outstanding human beings, behind the sometimes they're not. They that lack of structure leads to, screwing up again. Greetings, Brett from Finland. Thanks for the videos. Loved your story. Sorry I can't catch this live now, but I'll sure as heck listen to this tomorrow. I appreciate that. So I've talked about crypto. Trust. To mention, I'm going to end the show. Redo the title since, but in order for me to victimize you, I have to get you to trust. If you don't trust me, you're not going to give me that information, access, data, cash that I'm looking for. So when you're looking at scams, when you're looking at being defrauded, and I don't care if you're an individual, I don't care if you're a business. If you're looking at that, it's important for that attacker to gain your trust. Okay. So what does it take to gain trust? If you're a company, does it take stolen credentials? Does it take a session token? Does it take a browser fingerprint? Does it take you're doing IP range? Does it take that? I mean, what does it take to gain your trust? Does it take a stolen identity, a credit card? What does it take? If you understand that, then you can start to mitigate security. You can start to design security to mitigate. I said mitigate security. You can start to design security to mitigate that type of attack. You're an individual. What does it take to gain your trust? And here's the thing: I when I give a presentation, I say that trust online is established through a combination of technology, tools, and then social engineering. Technology, we inherently trust these things, these cell phones. We trust our cell phones, our laptops, hardware we use, the websites we go to, the software we use. What we don't understand is that criminals use a variety of tools to manipulate that technology. They'll use stolen identities. They'll use proxy addresses or RDPs to make it appear that they're in one location when they're actually themselves. They'll use phone calls so that you don't see the phone number that they're calling from. You see the phone number of your financial institution or the sheriff's department. They use that to manipulate the technology that you trust that you probably don't even understand. Right? A lot of the time, that's enough for that attack to be successful. Some of the time, it's not. Some of the time, it just lays that base level of trust. It just opens the door of trust. And at that point in time, we get to see how good of a social engineer that attacker, that criminal is in manipulating you into giving up information, access, data, or cash. So, what is social engineering? Social engineering is the nice, friendly PC tech word. It's the warm and fuzzy word that the security industry uses to describe a con man, a liar, a manipulator. And I was a prolific and extremely effective social engineer, con man, liar, manipulator. All right, so that's how trust is established. I talk about Beanie Babies in my presentations, and there's a reason for that. So really, one of the first crimes I committed online, Bill O'Reilly, that Fox News host that got his ass in trouble for sexual harassment, got fired, and he goes online. And before he goes on Fox News, he was a host of Inside Edition. Inside Edition was this 30 TV news tabloid show. So he hosted that, and Bill O'Reilly, as I was covered up in the ranks, Bill O'Reilly was my criminal muse. Yes, he was. So what happens is one night I'm watching Inside Edition, and he's on there, and they're talking about Beanie Babies. So for those of the new generation that don't know what a Beanie Baby was, in the mid to late 90s, they were these little small stuffed animals, completely worthless, but people thought they were, and they were highly collectible and selling for a lot of money. The number one animal that was selling was called Peanut, the royal blue elephant, selling for $1,500. And they were talking about that on Edition. And I'm sitting there watching it like, hell, I need to find me a Peanut. Well, here's the thing. I'm naive a lot of the time. I'm naive in relationships. I'm also naive. I was naive at that point in time. I thought that I said to myself, "Oh, I'm in Eastern Kentucky. I'm in Kentucky. I mean, because I was in Lexington. I'm in Kentucky. We're in Kentucky. There's surely a lot of people don't know about this thing. There's gotta be one in a bin somewhere. Skip class the next day, go around to all the Hallmark stores looking for a little peanut. Takes idiot here 3 hours to figure out, well, no, he's not in a shop, Brett. He's on eBay for $1,500. But they did have these little gray Beanie Baby for $8. So what do? Well, you buy a gray Beanie Baby elephant for $8. You stop by Kroger on the way home, and you pick up a pack of blue grit dye. Go home and try to dye the little. Well, there turns out I did not do well in home economics. Turns out they're made out of polyester. They don't hold dye. You get them out of the bath, and they look like they've got the mange. But I ripped a lady off of $1,500. Found a picture of a real one online. I posted it. She thought I had the real thing. She wins the bid. As soon as she wins the bid, social engineering kicks in. Con man, liar, manipulator. I One of the things you see about a lot of really skilled attackers, and I was no different, is I became a social engineer as a child in order to understand and try to control my environment of adults, because the adults in my circle were crazy and some of them were violent. I had to be able to clue into and know when something was about to pop off and try to manipulate. So I developed those social engineering tools. When I became an adult, I chose to use those tools to victimize other people. So this lady wins the bid, and I don't want to be on the defense of the conversation. So I sent her a message, and my message is, "Hey, lady, congratulations, you win. By the way, look, you and me, we've never done any business. I don't know if I can even trust you. What I need to do is go down to the U.S. Postal Service, pick up a couple of money orders. Look, they're issued by the United States Postal Service, the government that protects you. More importantly, it protects me. So you send me those, I'll send you your animal." She believes that. She sends me the money orders. I cash them out. As soon as I cash them out, I immediately send her this creature in the mail, and I get this phone call. I did not order it. My response was, "Lady, hey, you ordered a blue elephant. I sent you a bluish elephant." And the lesson from that, there's a few lessons that I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna close this out, and I'll answer the other questions tomorrow that pop up. The first lesson of cybercrime is that if you lay a victim long enough, you just keep putting them off, a lot of them get so exasperated, they throw their hands in the air, they walk away, and you don't hear from them, and they never complain to law enforcement. That was the first lesson 20 years ago. That's the first lesson of cybercrime today. They don't complain to law enforcement, they become exasperated, they give up, they walk. Because they don't complain, that emboldens somebody like me. I got away with it. Now, I did that crime under my own name, but I got away with it. And as I got away with it, I kept doing more. And I learned how to properly do crimes online until I became that guy. So that's really the first lesson. We're talking about trust. For me to victimize you, I have to get you to trust me. All right. So there's a few different things that allow me to establish trust with you. Fear of loss, fear of reward, punishment, the desire, that thirst for forgiveness. This lady really wanted this Beanie Baby. She had a desire for it. She wanted it so much that her emotional response was more than her rational response. Not only that, remember I said technology, tools, social engineering, you inherently trust the technology. She was trusting eBay to have vetted the other eBay users to make sure that scammers weren't on the platform. Well, eBay wasn't doing anything like that at all at that point, at all. But people apparently trust that technology. I was using some tools. In this case, I was using a picture of a real peanut baby, Beanie Baby that I had found online. So that tool helped me manipulate the technology along with the stolen identity that I had registered an eBay account under. That tool, those tools help you manipulate the technology, lay that base level, or lay trust enough that she bid wins the bid. At that point, Steph's wins the bid, and I manipulate her into doing what I want her to do. Trust. The the one of the key things, though, is getting how do I establish that trust? If that potential victim has a desire for something, in this case, her, she has that desire, she really wants that beanie. That makes it much easier for me to make her emotional response was more than her rational response. So just bear that in mind, as you go forward, if you're looking at crypto schemes, if you're looking at, somebody that's claiming they've got an item online, you're on Facebook Marketplace and somebody's advertising a 4 show wheels that's $1,000 cheaper than any place else, and you've really been wanting those wheels, your emotional response is higher than your logical or rational. You're not being reasonable, all right? There's an old saying, "It's too good to be true." It is. And that's not to say that you can go by price on this kind of stuff too. You can't. When I was, uh, actively involved in crime, who we got? Mike. Was that when you needed money orders to complete the deal? I mean, I didn't need them, but, I at that point in time with, US Postal money orders that I could cash out the money orders at the post office. I didn't have to have a bank account. So it's before I got fake IDs, I was able to open up bank accounts and stuff like that. I was doing money orders because of the ability to cash those postal money orders out at the post office. Not hard. So back to that, that desire causes me to have the ability to gain that potential victim's trust easier than it should have been, all right? So how do you combat something like that? And that's what I was saying too. When I was reselling either items that I had stolen or items that I didn't have that I claimed to have, what I would do is I would post instead of, cutting a large amount the price down, I was big on these ELP projectors and these Canon, I think they were X1 Canon cameras. They were the top camera at the time. The porn industry used them prolifically. So, and they went for I think the retail, they were like at $4,000. So instead of listing that camera on eBay, say $2,000, I would list it at, say, $3,300, about 80% of whatever the retail price was. So it's a bargain, but it's not an unbelievable bargain. There was a sweet spot there that's enough to tempt that potential victim, but not cause a lot of paranoia with that potential victim. That's some of the things you have to watch out for. What I would say, for people who are what you need to do is if you're thinking about crypto, and God knows you should not be thinking about crypto, you're going to lose your ass on that. 99% plus of every token is fraudulent. Fraudulent rug pulls. Somebody's going to rip you off. If you're coming into that, you're going to lose your ass 99% of the time. Don't. Just avoid it. All right. So ask Blake Peters. He'll tell you he'll rip everybody off. So what I'm saying is that if you're looking at something, if someone's trying to get information, access data, or cash, if it's an unasked for ask, you've not approached a company or individual, and then they respond, "Well, we do this." If it's just reaching out and immediately, it's coming to ask for something. Ultimately, it may take months to get to that point. Are you doing your due diligence? Are you researching that person, that item, that domain, that email back far enough? Because what I used to do when I was committing crime is I would anticipate that potential victim trying to verify, trust but verify. I would try to anticipate that potential victim verifying some layers below, and I would make sure that those layers were covered. You as a potential victim, and everyone out there is, you as a potential victim, you have to understand that, and you have to be willing and diligent enough to, even though I want that PS5, even though I want that Beanie Baby, even though I want that, that horrible set of Apple VR glasses that's $3,500 that nobody bought. Apple all of a sudden says, "Oh, that was a bad idea," even though I want that and it's at a good price. Am I diligent enough? Can I pause? Because a pause, the word pause means that your emotional goes down, the rational, reasonable level rises up. Can you pause and just start doing some due diligence, start verifying things? You know, how old is the domain? Is it connected? What does the website? Do they have everything in the world and everything's on offer? Is it an unreasonable price? Is it? Do they have the item when no one else in the world has? You know, whatever that is, are you verifying in a second for verifying so many layers down, or are you simply relying on one thing or two things to establish trust? Oh yeah, they've got the right login and password. That's the person. Oh yeah, they know the Social security number. That's the person. Oh yeah, that's the phone number of my financial institution. They know my Social security number. I trust them. No, absolutely. So, my name is Brett Johnson. This is Brett Johnson. We're going to close it out. We're going to be live, and I ran a little bit late today. Not only that, but I had to restart. I had to restart because Eric said that the video was stuttering, the audio was messed up. I guess, I guess it's because I was running I didn't have it hardwired. So I told Eric, I was like, I'll be back in just about 5 minutes. I ran a cord real quick, plugged it into the desktop, and it seems like everything's working fine. My name is Brett Johnson. This is the Brett Johnson Show. We are live every day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Central. Show right for about an hour. We're going to talk about whatever anybody wants to talk about, whatever's got my fancy that particular day. I didn't get to mention Howard Ludnick today. I want to talk about some tariffs tomorrow and how Howard and Cantor Fitzgerald is profiting. Ooh, man, are they ever. They want to make some billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars over, the Supreme Court saying that tariffs are illegal and there's going to be some money refunded. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Stay safe out there. Just do the right damn thing out there. I've been listening to, I've been on a kick recently of listening to Frank Sinatra, particularly the song My Way. What gets me is one of the stanzas, the chorus, right toward the end. He says, "What is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not. To say the things he truly feels and not the words of one who kneels. Let the record show I took the blows and I did it my way." The thing is, when he says that, not to repeat someone who kneels, you are your own person. You absolutely are. You have a mouthpiece. Do not parrot the opinions of others. Educate yourself. By all means, listen to the opinions of others. Let that form your own opinion and educate your own opinion. Do not fall for the Dunning-Kruger effect of saying, "Hey, I know everything. I'm an expert." Dunning-Kruger. So it turns out that the less someone knows about something, the more expert they think they are in something. Meanwhile, you've got the imposter effect, which is like, and I suffer from that, which means the more you know about it, the less confident you are. And there are times, man, I am not confident at all about a lot of the stuff that I do. My name is Brett Johnson. Do the right damn thing at the end of the day. Stay safe out there. All right. Stay safe out there. Until tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.